So next, I would love to introduce to you Lars AP. Now, Lars is the author and founder of a movement called the Effing Friendly movement in Denmark. I've never met anybody that specializes in friendliness before, so I'm really excited to welcome to the stage Lars AP.
Thank you so much. Let me start out by saying I am incredibly humbled to be in a room with people like you, because you're moving and throwing balls. I saw even this morning. Early this morning, two people arriving. They were dancing on their way down the aisle here. I believe you're sitting over here somewhere. No, but it looked good. It looked great, and it just shows to me that you guys you're playful people. You're people who are moving, and so what I'm going to present here is definitely going to be a letdown compared to what you guys are up to just on a regular Thursday morning. So I'm sorry about that already. So I'm Lars. I'm the son of an American father and a Danish mother, and when I was 6 years old, we moved from Los Angeles in California to Haarby in Funen, which is way out in the outskirts in Denmark. I grew up in a household in which we spoke English, then Danish, then English, then Danish, which is actually quite normal in a bilingual household, nothing unnatural about that. The weird thing, though, is that I started realizing whenever we switched languages, my personality would switch as well. So not in any Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of way, but still, it changes. And even today, I'm different when I speak English compared to when I speak Danish. When speaking English, it's far more natural for me to strike up a conversation with the person standing behind me in the queue in the supermarket. It's more normal for me to talk with people in the street. And it's not that I'm shy when I speak Danish, but I'm definitely socially a little more. I hold back socially a little more when speaking Danish. And the really interesting thing is, the one thing that I really noted is, when speaking English, I'm 2 degrees happier than when I speak Danish. Seriously. And of course, you guys know that Danes are said to be among the happiest people in the world. Well, if you're in my shoes, just for a sec, half of me speaks the world's happiest language, which is Danish. The other half of me speaks this other language, which in my case is English. So when am I the happiest? Well, I'd say probably when I speak the world's happiest language, and when I'm enacting that part of myself, which is part of the happiest country in the world. But no, as I just told you guys, I'm 2 degrees happier when speaking English. So why is this? Well, I'm not smart enough to give you guys an answer for this. I had to go out and talk to people who are way smarter than myself. So I spoke to psychologists, anthropologists, sociologists, meteorologists. Ologists are usually the kind of people you want to talk to if you want smart answers. I spoke to linguists. I spoke to all kinds of people just who could potentially give me an answer for this. And when I came back with all their insights, there was a ton of insights, but there was actually a very clear red thread, and the red thread that was there is that it's fundamentally easier for me to be friendly towards other people when speaking English as compared to when speaking Danish. Now, as I just told you guys, I'm 2 degrees happier when speaking English, so apparently being friendly makes me happier. Hopefully, when being friendly, I'm also making someone else happier, because I'm just for a moment helping them or making their lives just a little bit easier. So to me, this was just a win-win scenario. Being friendly and hopefully helping someone, and then becoming happier yourself. So I thought, this is something that I need to do something about. This is something that I want to take a stand for. I want to work to promote friendliness in Denmark. And I've been doing that in all kinds of ways. I've been doing it in the streets. This is something that I did a few years back. I decked myself out as a parking attendant, and we filmed with hidden cameras. So this is actually really fun, just ticketing people like hell all day long. It's actually more fun than you'd imagine. But what I had done is I had forfeited the ticket. So instead of it said that it was a parking ticket, I actually said this is a parking prize. And I took a 100 Danish kroner bill and stuck it in between the fine and the card that you use for paying the fine. And so when I was giving out tickets, it was actually parking prizes that I was giving out. Now, we're not used to this. When we meet a parking attendant, we think, uh-oh, something's wrong. This is not going to be good. And that's exactly what people expected when they saw me here in the streets. They actually got quite mad to begin with. But then they realized, oh, wait a minute. something else is going on here. What is actually going on here? And it took people by surprise because they were being socially hacked. This was a fundamentally different experience than they had imagined. And when something like this happens, you get moved. You move yourself into a new realm, into a new. You have to grasp the situation in a different manner, and you can see how people start to react in ways that are of awe of what's going on here. What's the case here? And when you start being friendly towards the world becomes friendly towards you. And so, at the end of the day here, while I was out being a parking attendant, I had conversations with people that were just really, really wonderful. A woman ended up giving me the bouquet that you see up here. She gave me a bouquet because it helped her to fit into a parking spot. She had never experienced that from a parking attendant. It was a pretty tight spot. Another guy saw me talking with people who were parking their cars and saw how we were laughing and having a good time. He said, I've never seen a parking attendant have a good time like that with people who are parking their cars. And so he gave me a bottle of, in Danish they're called små grå, and they're sort of little schnapses with licorice taste. He gave me a tray and seven glasses to drink them as well, because he said, you're being friendly towards people, so I want to be friendly towards you again. And that's essentially what happens when you're friendly towards the world. I've collected stories throughout, with my team in Effing Friendly, we've been collecting stories to see when good things happen, when friendliness occurs, and to date we've had more than 10,000 stories. I actually think we're up at about 13,000 stories at this point, and these stories are all kinds of pretty long, actually, data sets of when friendliness happens between people. They can. This is a quite normal story that we would get in from someone. This is in Danish, so you guys obviously don't understand it. So I've translated it, and this is what it looks like, and I'll read it out loud to you guys. On a day trip to Fårup Sommerland. Fårup Sommerland is a theme park in Denmark. I was standing in line for one of the roller coasters with my nephew Nikolai and his little sister Merle. Nikolai had recently turned 4, so he was old enough to go on the ride now. Standing outside the line were 3 mentally disabled people. One of them was really upset. She wanted to try the ride. The other 2 were too scared, and she didn't dare on her own. Suddenly Nikolai, mind you, he's 4 years old. Suddenly, Nikolai stepped out of the line and ran to the upset girl. Hey, you can ride with me, Nikolai said. The 2 of them took 3 rides together. They ended by giving each other a hug. I was a very proud aunt. And that's. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that's pretty touching when something like that happens. And I don't know if you guys would be, or if I would be brave enough to do something like this. But Nikolai was, and I think that's actually really, really inspiring that someone would step out of the line and help another person like this. And I collect stories like this because they invigorate me and they fascinate me. And I'm not the only one fascinated by stories like this. We've been fascinated historically by stories like this. This is Michelangelo's painting on the 16th chapel in Rome. It's God breathing life into Adam, and how does this happen? By touch. So this is what goes on. This is how life is breathed into us. You can see this also historically. If we don't even have to go back that far. This, of course, is from E.T. Something magical happened when Elliot, the 8-year-old child, helped out the extraterrestrial who was left behind on Earth. When they touched, and when E.T. wanted to phone home, something magical happened. This is what happens to us if we're not touched. This is what happens to us when we do not experience these micro moments, as scientists call them, when we actually experience connection with other people. And a little bit of breaking news to all of us is that we're actually all experiencing a decline in the amount of connection and micro moments of connectedness that we feel. So in reality, what's happening to us is we're collectively headed this way. Now, many will say, well, of course we are, because we've just been through this. And so being through this and being forced to keep a social distance and to stay away from each other, of course we're experiencing a time where we're not together. But in fact, this is not something that COVID has set in motion. This is something that was set in motion way before. And just to show you guys, I've brought some insights from a study done by scientists who looked at pop music. And now, what is pop music? Well, pop music is something. It's what we relish. It's what we sing about, and it's what we listen to. And so, what they look for is what is it that we're singing about? What is it that we're listening to? What is it that we're celebrating in our culture? And this is what it looks like when you do science like that. It's communication insights from pop music's #1 hits. So they took the Hot Billboard 100, and they looked at the #1 hits and looked at what are they about. And so dating way back from the 1960s to the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, the #1 hits. What are they actually about? What are the most influential words of these songs? And I'll make it easier for you to go through this chart. In the 1960s, what we sang about and what we listened to was love. All you need is love. She loves me, yeah, 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 etc., etc. In the 70s, it was love as well. 80s, also love. Now in the 90s, something happens. Love somehow loses its grasp on us, and it drops to #3. So okay, you might say, well then what becomes the most influential word in the 90s? Well, it's quantity. So what's quantity? Well, it's when we sing, I want $1 million, I want to be a billionaire. We're singing about quantities. So that's what we're actually beginning to sing about here. That's what becomes the most relevant, or what we actually celebrate. So you could hope in the 2000s. This is from 2014, so they don't have the tens in this survey here. In the noughts, what happened there? Love fell to the 9th most influential word. So you can see this is something that happened way before COVID. The touch that we have, or the connection and the sense of connectedness that we feel, and how we celebrate it, is something that's dwindling in our society and in our culture. And of course, then when something like COVID hits us, it's going to hit us like a sledgehammer, because that's really not very, very good for us. This is not just something that we can. I mean, it's not only in pop music, and it's not just fun and games. This is actually something. It's a very fundamental thing for humans, because we're herd animals. We need each other, and this is a survey that was done. It's actually a huge medical survey that was done internationally, and it was done with 3.4 million people around the globe. And the research, what they did is they took in 50-year-olds, so 3.4 million people that were 50 years old of age, and they tested them on all kinds of parameters on health and mental health and physical health issues. And then it's a longitudinal study, so they sent people out again, and then after 10 years, they asked people to return to the laboratories, and then they were tested again. What happens when you have experiments like this, when you let 10 years go by in time, there's going to be people who die during this period of time. There's also going to be people who don't thrive, and who are either physically or mentally experiencing health problems. And what the researchers could do is they could figure out, well, what factors are actually the most important for us people to thrive and stay alive. And these are actually the top 10 elements that are necessary for us to thrive and stay alive. And as you can see, the bottom here, the number 10 is that we should live in areas that have clean air. And then you can see there's a little table in her way, but then this is Susan Pinker, by the way, a social psychologist, one of the researchers. A bit above that, you'll see move is very important, because exercise is actually, I believe, the 7th most important factor for healthy living and for actually staying alive. A little further up there, flu vaccine. Now, when I did seminars before COVID, I was sort of, I wondered, well, why is flu vaccine up that high? I don't wonder anymore. I think that's perfectly understandable. Of course, there's something about not to drink too much, and if we smoke, we also need to realize that has a detrimental that's detrimental to our health. Now, the two top elements, the two most important factors for staying healthy and for staying alive look like this. So the second most important is close relationships. What do you have in close relationships? These are people that you can share your ups and downs with, people that you can hug, people that you can get hugs from, For men, it's actually also important if you've been coughing for several weeks that you have a partner who says, okay, honey, you've been coughing for 2 weeks. I really think you should see the doctor. We men are really bad at that. I mean, that's not the reason you should get a partner, but it is actually good for your health because we're not very good at taking care of our health ourselves. The most important factor for thriving and staying alive is what the researchers call social integration. So what is social integration? Well, social integration is, so say that you go down to the local kiosk and you're going to get a roll of Mentos, and so you go over and you find the flavor that you want. You take the roll of Mentos and then you take it over to the cashier. You put it on the table. You take out your credit card and you wave it, and it says beep, and then you're essentially done. And so you take your Mentos and then you're on your way. Now, in that brief interaction, if you just had a moment of eye contact with the person standing on the other side of the cashier. Maybe as you were leaving, you said, "Have a great day," and then you left. If you did that, what you gave the cashier is the feeling of being socially integrated in this situation. Now, the magical thing is you gave yourself that feeling also, because you both felt, hey, you belong here, I belong here, okay, see you later. It's just a micro moment. I mean, it's nothing. You're not becoming best friends in this situation. You might not even see each other again. But that little moment that you give each other, that is the most important for us to thrive and stay alive. And I know you guys are thinking, come on, that can't be true. There's got to be things that are more important for us. But if you just think about it, how is it that what do we do to people who we incarcerate? What's the worst we can do to people in our society? Well, the worst we can do in society is that we incarcerate them, and not only that we incarcerate them, but that we put them in isolation. What is it that we do when we put people in isolation in our prisons? Well, essentially what we do is we take away their feeling of being socially integrated. They do not get contact with other people, and that's something that just kills us. Loneliness kills us, and loneliness is killing us. Loneliness is actually what makes us all feel like that cat when we do feel like that. It's definitely not good for us. And if we were not talking about COVID today, or these days, we'd be talking about loneliness, because loneliness is a huge problem and is becoming bigger and bigger. All right. I could say this, scientists could say this, but of course, we all know it. We know it in our heart of hearts. We know it in our belly that we need each other. Connection means a whole lot. Now I'm talking, and I could continue talking here, but actually I'd like to just for a second, I'd like to just throw the ball to you guys, and I'd like to ask you guys, when is the last time, or can you recall a situation when you felt unexpected friendliness from maybe even from a person that you didn't know? When did you? I think I have it on the slide here. When have you experienced a high level of connectedness, or even felt touched by an encounter with a person you hadn't met before? So what I'm asking you is to try to recall a situation where you experienced something like that. And now this could be a situation where someone did something friendly towards you. It could be a situation where you were going about your daily chores, your daily routines, and then all of a sudden you saw another person over there, and you jumped out of your routines and helped this other person. Or it could also, it's also okay if you recall a situation where you weren't even involved, but you saw this person over here doing something friendly to this person over here. So one of those situations, I'm just asking you to try to recall a situation like that. And I'd like you to just turn to the person sitting next to you and share that situation that you recall. And I'm only going to give you a minute and 30 seconds to do this, so it won't be awkward at all. So a minute and 30 seconds, a situation of unexpected friendliness. Ready, set, go.
Talking to you, just. I felt a real connectedness with you.
Thank you. I'd like to hear just one or two, if it's possible. Is that all right? Yeah. Thanks. Excellent. I don't have my notes on. No, it's not on there. I only have two. That's good.
I didn't realise the volunteers are all over this. You've got one over there, one over there.
Perfect, perfect. I'm sorry, my notes were, so I was a little thrown because my notes weren't on up here, so I sort of, okay, what's the next slide here?
Well, the good thing is that you know and we don't. So.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm the only one stressing. Yeah. Okay. So, first question, was it difficult to recall a situation? No? I would imagine with a bunch like you guys, I'd imagine that it would be pretty easy. And to those of you who actually, yeah, it was actually a little difficult for me. Don't worry about it. It's not a sign of anything at all. I mean, it's not a sign that there's something wrong with you in any way. Because we're just so hardwired that we look for problematic situations way more than we look for potentially good situations. So it's only natural that it would be actually difficult for you guys to remember a positive situation. Could we maybe hear one or two of the situations? Are there any? Is there a brave volunteer who would yes, we have. Oh, right, and all by yourself, you rose. Yeah, that is what a brave volunteer there. And if you could speak loudly, that'd be great.
I think I have the mic working. So yesterday I was trying to buy my dinner, but the card did not work in the shop. And then a guy who was behind me in the row, he just paid for my dinner. Thank you for this kind
wow.
stranger.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks. And could we maybe hear one more story, one more situation? So you guys over here were really brave. Look up there, there's a brave one down there. There's a brave one. Brave volunteer, excellent.
Yeah, so you're gonna think I'm full of myself because I was the nice one in the story, but then the response was even nicer. So I was in a supermarket in Paris, where, you know, Parisian people aren't really nice in general. I'm not from there. And some of the workers in the supermarket just dropped a bunch of fruit, and I hate fruit. I just touching it, I'm like, ugh. And me being very nice, partially because I'm not from Paris, I started helping him, picking up the food, giving it to him, and he was actually very, very, very nice about it. And he was like, oh my God, thank you so much, that's so adorable, thank you, really emphasizing how touched he was. And so yes, some people are nice in Paris.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we have two food-related stories here. That's wonderful. No, that's great. That's great. Is there one third story that we should just hear? I thought, yeah, we saw it. Yes, there's a hand right here. And there's a microphone coming your way.
I was walking past a young man on Saturday night who was trying to climb over a railing to jump onto a motorway to commit suicide.
Oh my God.
And I managed to stop him. I got injured in the fracas, but I managed to stop him, and services came, took him away to safety.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we'll end with that because no one can come after that. That's a bit difficult. Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for the examples. So the theme, part of the theme anyway, here is restart. But how? Now, you guys are associations, so you're masters at bringing people in, at creating a crowd where you're associated about an interest. Now, the thing about associations is that it can also be something, because you're here, you're huddled around an interest. You can also, in some ways, because you're huddling, people, outsiders who are not part of the huddle, can sometimes find it a little difficult to come inside. And this is actually something that we need to maybe work with openness. And I think you guys will say, well, we're open. We're definitely open. And some of the prize winners yesterday obviously are extremely open, creating things where you're actually engaging people and bringing people who are refugees, foreigners, bringing them in. This is a survey that was done among expats, and this often surprises us Danes, because we Danes consider ourselves, we're happy. We also consider ourselves very jovial, and we consider ourselves relatively friendly. But among expats, in a survey among expats, Denmark actually comes in as the most difficult country in which to gain new friends. And that is just, it's a pretty big surprise, because we say, well, we're really good. We have so many associations. You can just join an association. You can become part of so many interests. So it's this is really a great way where you can engage and meet new people. But again, I think it has something to do with, we are very friendly towards the people that we share interests with, but people that we don't share interests with, or people that we don't know yet, we just do not really acknowledge them that much. And it makes it difficult for people who are outside to become insiders. Now, sometimes the people on the outside do the work themselves. This next story that I want to tell you guys is from London. It's from London, and it's Sarah, who lives she lived out in the countryside in England, and then she moved into London to get work in a high-rise in London. She was being introduced to the intranet, and as she was being introduced to the intranet, she wrote in Sarah, and as she was writing in Sarah, 12 names popped up. So there were 12 Sarahs in the building, and she was like, "Oh yeah, well that's because she was from a little town, she wasn't used to having that many Sarahs around herself." Anyway, that gave her an idea, and the idea that she had was that she wrote out an email to the other Sarahs, and she wrote exactly what I told you. I'm new to the city. I'm new to this high-rise. I don't know anyone here in London at all, but I have this idea. On Friday, I've booked a table in the canteen. And it's going to have a little sign on it that says Lunch of Sarahs. I'd love it if you'd meet up and so that we could meet each other. We're both named Sarah, and this way we can get to know all the other people in the building who are also named Sarah. And here they are, having lunch on the Friday. So this is Lunch of Sarahs. Now that requires a lot of Sarah to actually open up a crowd like this. And another way of creating openness is something that a pair of Finnish designers did, and that is that they actually created, or they designed, a jacket for lonely people. And this is what it looked like. And the jacket for lonely people, what they did is they put the Velcro stripes on the outside of the jacket. Now, why did they do that? Well, they did it because when we're walking on the sidewalk and we get to a red light, and we might be standing relatively close, and then as we're standing by the red light, we might even brush shoulders. And when we brush shoulders, because I have Velcro on my jacket, we're going to stick together. And so, when we leave, or when we're about to go, we have to actually rip ourselves apart from each other. So we're brought together like that. Wonderful thing for engaging a lonely. It didn't sell very much, and I think maybe we understand why. But my question is, how will you create openness? We need to be really creative to think up new solutions to help people into the associations, into the interests that we have. We also need to set the scene for more friendliness, and we could do this in various ways. George Sisidakis took his interest of technology, and he combined it with a loving and touchy feeling, and he did this on Union Square in San Francisco. So he decked out a drone with mistletoe. And so when people were walking along, businessmen, businesswomen walking along with their briefcase, he had this flying over Union Square. And of course, when we're walking along, and we're just walking, and we're busily going on our own way, the drone would then fly over us. And of course, we all know what happens when a mistletoe is above us. So we look sort of, we have eye contact just for a brief moment, and then we try to move so that we get away from the mistletoe, because we don't necessarily want to hug. We don't know each other. But then the mistletoe would move along with us, and so a dance would sort of start, and we would maybe laugh because this is sort of an odd situation, and that would create a little micro moment, a little situation where we at least have just a bit of connection, which we would normally not have. I'm going to jump this next one here. This is another way of creating or setting the scene for friendliness. This is a Japanese concept. It's a restaurant. I don't know if you guys probably know that dementia is a pretty big problem in an aging populations. It's becoming a larger and larger problem. When you're hit by Alzheimer's or dementia, you're essentially your role in society is really difficult. It's difficult to hold on to a job because you forget things. You get confused in social situations. In this restaurant, what they did is they actually engaged the people hit by Alzheimer's, and they had them as the wait staff, which is a terrible idea. Because as a wait staff, as a waitress or waitress, you have to remember who's this order for. But now you would have a person with Alzheimer's who would forget, okay, who's this order actually for? And the restaurant is called Restaurant of Mistaken Orders. And of course, that's exactly what it is, because the orders are often mistaken and misplaced at the wrong tables. Well, what happens when you bake in a problem into the system? What happens is all of a sudden other people have to stand up and help out because the system is not working. And so what you're seeing here is the elderly woman here is the wait staff. She's hit by Alzheimer's, and she's forgotten something here. So another staff member, actually a cook, has come out and puts his hand on her shoulder, helps her out with where she has to go. And look at these people dining at the table. They've actually also had to help her to figure out what goes on. So when we actually bake into our system the problems that we're facing in society, something interesting all of a sudden happens, and that's a way also to promote or to set the scene for friendliness. My time is running out, so I'm going to step way ahead here and just have one last point, and that is we need to be playful. This is not going to be difficult for you guys because you guys are very playful. And a guy who's also playful is Fabianco, an Italian, who took two elements, two insights. The one insight is that most people absolutely hate waiting for the bus, and the other insight is that most of us absolutely love pressing bubbles out of bubble wrap. And he combined these two insights into what he called anti-stress for free, which he created at a bus stop. And you can see it here. Here's the sign, anti-stress for free. And the concept, very simply, is that the two of us are waiting for the bus. We have 3 minutes until our bus arrives, so we just have to take this little piece because we won't be able to press out that many bubbles. If we have 5 minutes waiting time, we need the larger piece. 10 minutes or above, we need the big old whopper because we can obviously press out a lot of bottles here. And this playfulness, this combination of new ways or of different insights is something that I think you guys are really good at with the sports that you're combining. I just saw this concept that I had not heard of before, which is the outhouse race, which is done in Michigan, United States. You have 2 pushers, you have 2 pullers, and then you have a rider who's in the outhouse, basically a toilet, which is on skis. And so it's a race that they do. So combining new activities into new, fun, engaging sports, and I think this Congress is just a testament to the fact that you guys are you're excellent at thinking up concepts that work out like this. And my final example is use the balls that you're thrown. This is from Stoughton, Wisconsin. This was in July, and what happened is a ball was left in the street, and it was a big beach ball that was left. Nobody knew whose beach ball it was left out there. And so kids went out and they started playing with it. They went in and they got markers, and then they wrote their names on the ball, and then they rolled the ball to the neighboring street. Other kids went out and played with it. They also wrote their names on the ball, so more names were now added to the ball, which was out in the streets. Now, mind you, this was in July, so we're still in Corona times, in COVID times, and this ball was something that the town all of a sudden started talking about. It became talk of the town. And in the town, they also started, they started writing on the internet or on their Facebook groups, what should we call this ball? Because we're all talking about it. And so they had a poll, and they decided to call it Rolly Polly Ollie. I don't know why they decided on that name. That was the name they decided on, and it kept sort of appearing in the streets. It was rolled about, and people signed their names more and more on it, and everyone they talked about it. Someone made a live camera. Or had a live map online so that you could always see where the ball was in this little town, 12,000 inhabitants in Wisconsin. At some point, the air went out of the ball, and the local paramedics said, "We'll take care of it." And so they did a health test of the ball, and they sewed it back together. It was out at night, so of course it could be in danger. The local police authority said, "We'll take care of the ball and make sure that it's okay." And what happened is, because of a beach ball, the town was all of a sudden brought together after a long, long period of social distancing. Something brought them together. It was a ball that brought them together. And so the local media obviously took note, national media took note, and this was something that was on national television, that Raleigh takes over and actually became something that pulled people together. This is exactly what you guys are doing. When you use your balls, when you use your playfulness, when you use your sports and your interest for it, you bring people together and you move people, and when moving people, you actually also, they don't only move physically, but they get moved emotionally, and that's just spectacular when you guys do it. So thank you, my time's up, so thank you so much, and bye-bye, thanks.